Good evening and welcome. I'm speaking tonight to the author of a book that is capturing South Africans. Memoirs of a Born Free is the story of Malaika wa Azania's experience of growing up in South Africa during the nation's transition to democracy. She is currently studying geography at Rhodes. All right, Malaika, thank you very much for joining me this evening and congratulations on your fantastic book.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, Malaika, in this book, you've rejected the category of born free, ultimately, and you've provided your personal experience as a young South African. Would you mind talking just a little bit more about your book? What exactly have you wanted to do with this? What is the intention behind this?
Okay, I'm just going to give you a not so very brief summary of this, right? Sometime last year, you will be aware from the book that I started my first year at Rhodes in 2012, but last year I could not return due to some financial constraints. And so I started doing a lot of volunteer work around the continent, working with the African Union and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, which in 2012 had started a very interesting initiative of young people called the African Youth Coalition, which was basically an umbrella body of young civil society organizations on the African continent. And so last year, when I realized I was not going to be able to return to Rhodes, I was appointed to be the Secretary General of that organization. And we did a lot of work, around, youth advocacy programs, implementation of the African Youth Charter around the continent and all of that. So I was able to accumulate enough resources for me to, of course, be able to come back to school this year. But also, I had a surplus. And with my surplus, I then decided that I was going to do a little trip, a road trip around the SADC region. One of the common conversations that we were having as young people in the SADC region was around how we conceptualize the idea of post-democracy, the idea of post-independence Africa. And I realized that, there are many of us young people on the African continent, or rather in the SADC region, who have got very similar struggles about identity, struggles of trying to locate ourselves within very liberal spaces, struggles around, even who we are as a people. And it was from that experience, that kind of reflection, as I was sitting down in Zimbabwe writing. When I came back to South Africa, I had to go back to Zimbabwe again for the elections. I was part of the observer mission for those elections. So it was while I was around Zimbabwe at that time, sitting and thinking deeply about the challenges that we face in South Africa, that I started writing this was a journal entry, really, just talking about what have been my experiences, what have been my reflections. And the end product of that became a very, a huge manuscript with my own reflections, but most of them were very political. So I decided to give it a more human feel to it, because it would have been too general to say, young people are not free. On what basis am I saying that? And so that's when I decided to locate my own personal life, my personal journey, my personal struggles and challenges and reflections within that manuscript.
If I can move on to the next topic, Malaika, I'm quite interested in your involvement in the creation and then your subsequent departure from the economic freedom fighters. In your book, you said that you had considered at a moment that the EFF should perhaps have stayed as a mass movement outside of party politics. And I'm interested now, approximately 3 months after the national elections, you've, I'm sure, been watching the EFF. What are your feelings on this now? Do you still think that they should have stayed out of party politics?
I think that the EFF was I think the EFF, I would never have given my time, my energies, my resources into an idea that I believed would die, or an idea that I did not fully believe in. The EFF remains one of the most important ideas that have come out of South Africa post-1994. And I still strongly believe that the EFF would have done so much more for this country if it had remained as a mass movement. And part of the reason I say this is that, there are many people, contrary to popular belief and contrary to what the EFF itself wants to project, economic freedom fighters are not only located within the EFF. Within the ANC, you've got economic freedom fighters. In fact, I even dare say that all black people in this country, all black people are economic freedom fighters one way or another. For the rich black people who are sitting in boards and who are CEOs of big institutions and parastatals and all of that, for them, economic freedom means something completely different to the working class black person. For a person who's got all the resources, for them, it could mean finally having complete ownership to resources, as opposed to being put there as a blackface, because that's what gets done in most companies anyway. South Africa is a country where, blackness is a badge of window dressing, where they are put as boards into these boards and all of that. But ultimately, they've got no control of resources, no control and access to these resources and infrastructure. They are just there, because we need a black face to be able to be accredited for BEE status and all of that. So I think for the rich black, that's what economic freedom would mean. For the poor black person, naturally, economic freedom means so much more. It means, finally having, a better standard of life, access to resources, ownership to means of production and all of that. And so I think because of black people, naturally we are all economic freedom fighters, we would have all found a home in the EFF, even if they had been members of the ANC. Because if the EFF was a mass movement, it would not matter which political party you align to. Whether you're a member of the ANC, a member of the IFP, the DA, or anything else, you would have still been able to be a member of the EFF if it had remained as a civil society organization or a mass movement.